Hello and welcome. I wonder if you consider yourself an optimist or a pessimist. How do you think if something bad happens? Are you thinking, well, at least things can't get much worse? Or are you thinking, gee, I wonder what else is going to happen now? Wow, what's life got in store for me next? Optimist or pessimist? We've been looking at the story of Job in the Old Testament of the Bible, a righteous man who has suffered something extremely bad. He's lost everything, all of his wealth, all of his possessions, even his children, in a single day. And he's faced a moral challenge, a question that's being asked of him. Is he good because it's the right thing to be, or from an ulterior motive? Does he do the right thing because he believes that that will attract the approval and blessing of God, not just because it's right? And in spite of losing everything, so far he's maintained his integrity and his righteousness and his faith in God. But now there is Satan. And the word, it's a title, it's not a name, it means the accuser, the counsel for the prosecution, if you like, reappears before God and pulls something else out of his bag. Job chapter 2, verse 4, "Skin for skin," Satan replied. "A man will give all he has for his life. But now stretch out your hand and strike his flesh and bones, and he will surely curse you to your face." The Lord said to Satan, "Very well then, he is in your hands, but you must spare his life." So Satan went out from the presence of the Lord and afflicted Job with painful sores, from the soles of his feet to the crown of his head. Then Job took a piece of broken pottery and scraped himself with it as he sat among the ashes. His wife said to him, "Are you still maintaining your integrity? Curse God and die." He replied, "You're talking like a foolish woman. Shall we accept good from God and not trouble?" In all of this, Job did not sin in what he said. How not to comfort the afflicted, eh? Here is Job, and it's not clear what disease has come over him, if indeed it's meant to be any specific disease, but it's disfiguring, it's discomforting, it's isolating. And he's taken himself off to the place of the social outcast, the city rubbish dump, basically. And he's sat in the piles of ash that people have brought from their fires and just discarded there, and he's covered himself in it. And in the culture of the day, that was a way of expressing the deepest and most severe grief. Here is a man that is at rock bottom, at his lowest ebb, a man who's been brought low. He's come from the heights to the depths, from billionaire to bankrupt and broken. He is at a total end. And at this point, another player enters stage left. Job's wife, and it's the only time that she appears in the story, and she's even more broken than he is. Remember, she has lost everything that he has lost, all of their security and wealth and possessions, and all of the children that she has borne, that she's nursed and nurtured, have perished in a single day. This woman it's unspeakable to think of what she's gone through. And the writer of the story is clearly, he's come up with a scenario worse than which it's hard to imagine. Damaged people don't make great counsellors, do they? Just as an aside, when we're really down and broken, you want to talk to someone who's going to empathise and understand and encourage. But please don't go to someone who's in the same mess that you are, because they'll just get you deeper into the same mess. Honestly, you need to find someone who's been through it and come out the other side, who can speak encouragement, who can let us know that this is not the end of the story. This is not how it finishes. But the thing I really, really love is the way Job responds to his wife and this foolish piece of advice. He doesn't respond with sarcasm. "Oh yeah, right, that's really helpful and constructive advice. Thank you very much." Job is very capable of sarcasm, as we'll see a bit later in the book, but he doesn't dump it on his wife. He doesn't just humour her. "Yes, dear, okay, fine, all right, I'll give it serious consideration." Okay, No, he's not giving it consideration. But he also doesn't call her names. He doesn't vent upon her. He doesn't say, even though she said something foolish, he doesn't say, "You stupid woman, you fool." No, quite the reverse, actually. The implication of what he says is, "You're not a foolish woman. Why are you talking like one?" He refutes her advice, but in doing so, he addresses the issue. He does not attack her as an individual. And that is such an important skill to learn when we're placed in that kind of situation. I think, if we can remain gracious under pressure, that speaks a huge amount about our character, doesn't it? The person who is calm and polite and gentle under pressure, who bears that pressure upon themselves, bears their own pressure rather than dumping it on somebody else. As a person whose character we can admire. And that's something that we can learn. It reminds me rather of Jesus on the cross, where he's in such awful terminal pain. Really, he's been tortured, he's been beaten, he's been put through everything, he's been tied and then nailed to this awful instrument of torture. He's in his last hours, and he looks down and he sees his mother, who's about to lose her eldest son, the one who's supposed to care for her and take responsibility for her in her old age. And he sees John, who is about to lose his best friend, John, possibly an orphan. And he looks down and he says, "Mother, your son." And to John he says, "Here is your mother." And John takes her into his home and looks after her and takes on that responsibility that Jesus is unable to fulfill. So even in that immense distress and the greatness of pressure, Jesus is thinking of these other two individuals that he cares about and care for him. So if we can be gracious under pressure, how commendable is that? And I think it begins with two things. It begins firstly with the practice of just being gracious. When you're not under pressure, when it's relatively easy, just training yourself to be gracious in your handling of people. And it begins too with thinking graciously and not inwardly grumbling. Sometimes we can be nice to people, can't we? But all the time we're thinking, what a prat. What a stupid fool. Why are they even thinking that? Why did she say that? And we're building up ungraciousness in our own minds. And the trouble is, when we're put under pressure, that's when the stuff inside us that we've been holding back, that's when it tends to come out and kind of splurge on those around us, doesn't it? So if we can remain gracious under pressure, like Job, what a tremendous character trait that is. What a great example of the gospel of grace at work in us. The next week, some other characters enter the stage, Job's friends. Their comfort actually begins extremely well, but pretty quickly takes a turn for the worse. That's for next week. For now, may God just help us to cultivate and develop that capacity to be gracious and to be gracious under pressure. Amen.